Moneyball.com.au is Australia's #1 fantasy destination for a reason. I absolutely love it. It is so easy to use and super fun. You pick your starting 9 with a $60,000 salary cap and you're good to go. To genuinely support the locker room, sign up for free today at moneyball.com.au. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of The Locker Room. I'm here with Ben Ikin, the man himself. How you going, mate?
Good, thanks, Denon. Long time no see.
It has been quite a while. I remember you paid me a compliment. I remember quite a while ago you said I was your son's favourite player at the time.
You still are. I actually just told him before I come and did the interview here, I said, you'll never guess, Will, who I'm coming to see. I told him it was you during camp. He nearly fell off his chair. So you're still one of his favourite players.
Oh man, it was a short career, but it was an
impact.
Firework. It was a firework, and it just went out. Just literally went out straight, like in a half a year or so. So, I mean, since you retired, this is a sports show, but I mean, you're a known media name now. So, what I guess something a lot of people would be, and I myself am interested in. What's the difference with you're a known media type now, but before you're a known footy player? Is there much difference, you reckon?
Not really. I mean, it's kind of the same set of emotions you go through before doing live TV as you do running out for the Broncos or the North Sydney Bears or Queensland for State of Origin. You kind of get nervous. You want to do it well. If you don't do it that great, a lot of people will remind you that you didn't get it right. And if you do get it right, you go home and you're pleased with yourself.
Yep.
And, the same sort of truth that sort of underpins professional sport, underpins media, and that is that performance loves preparation. So the more you put into your prep in the lead up to live TV, likewise for professional sport, the better chance you are of doing it well. So that's kind of been my philosophy. The thing I love about the media is that I've been able to drag so much of what I learned as a professional sports person, playing in the NRL under some great coaches, into what I do now as a presenter for Fox Sports.
So, I mean, it was when you did go into media, I know we spoke about this earlier, but so you just as you said, you had that, I guess, it's like going to uni for 4 years on the topic that you were presenting. You've got a whole career of knowledge, so you're that far ahead of a guy that hasn't played footy his whole career.
So the knowledge base was never going to be an issue, because a bit like you, we lived and breathed it for so long. We had so many good mentors in our coaches and senior players. And so that the trick is, by being able to transition from player into media identity, is to understand what makes good TV. So the knowledge base is just one part of it. The second part is being able to tell a story. So take facts and turn them into something interesting and entertaining, and do that in front of a live national audience. So I kind of, a bit like my footy, I guess, I'm sure that by comparison when I first started, I'm much better. Today, I've got no doubt I failed my way to success. I would look back now on some of my early TV work and just be that embarrassed. But you've got to start somewhere, right?
Oh, mate, 100%.
TV is just one of those places, a little bit like professional sport, where the only way to do it is the hard way.
And you said, I really, I guess, resonates with me, you failed your way to success. That is such an important thing that I think a lot of kids nowadays don't really grasp the concept of failing to succeed. I mean, the guys that you see succeed have failed much more than they've succeeded. It's a really interesting concept that I think that this generation has kind of gotten away from. So when you did go to the media, were you actively trying to become a part of the media, or was it just whatever happens?
No. When I first fell into it, I got offered a local commentary gig with Channel 9 in Brisbane. So the local Channel 9 TV station covered Broncos games every week when they weren't covered by the network. And so I was whacked into the commentary team, really just said, there you go, there's a gig, go and do it. And had to watch other commentators who I enjoyed listening to try and figure out how I was going to do it. And then off the back of that local commentary gig, I got asked to fill a role in the State of Origin coverage for the 9 network, which was, I think, in my first Origin, it was just a half-time Q&A with the coach that went for about a minute. That was it.
Wow.
1 minute. And I went down with Gordon Tallis for this particular gig, and they had Gordy, who'd retired the same year I did, on the panel, with all the bigwigs discussing the game before, during and after. And I could remember Gordy, off the back of that first television experience, wasn't all that keen to do it again real soon. So Gordy pulled a pin for the second game. And when Gordy pulled the pin, someone had to step up and fill the void.
Yep.
So I did, and I mean, Gordy's come full circle now. He's made a brilliant career out of the media. But I filled in for that second role. I got more work by Game 3, and then the year after, I got offered a contract by the 9 Network to be part of the national coverage. And just started on the sideline, worked my way up into the commentary box. Spent 5 years at Channel 9, and left for personal reasons in the end, but then found my way back to Fox Sports. You know, who would have thought? I'm hosting my own show 3 nights a week.
Crazy.
Incredible.
And so, I mean, was there ever a time when you were playing footy that you were like, I could do media? Or was it literally just something that kind of you eventually applied your skills of knowing how to work hard? You obviously, you know, you can talk, you're good at talking, you know, you've got your knowledge base, you know, you're good under pressure. Was it something that just kind of came together, perfect storm? Or?
Yes, it was. I never worked towards a career in the media, although I always made myself available to the media while I was playing.
Okay.
So I never knocked back an interview. I did radio footy tips for CFM, my local radio station in my hometown down the Gold Coast, for like 7 years straight. So every Monday and Friday during the season. Prior to that, when I was playing for the North Sydney Bears, I'd only forgotten about this until recently. I actually did some work experience with Russell Barwick at Triple M.
Oh, really?
I just had a friend of a friend who said, mate, go in and he'll teach you some things about radio. And I just was always up for an opportunity to learn. I did a full season for 2GB, just on the Saturday end or the Sunday, whichever day I wasn't playing, sitting in with Andrew Moore, Roy Masters, Craig Salvatore. That was when 2GB were the secondary station to 2UE, who had Ray Hadley in the continuous call team before they all jumped ship. So we were like the second tier radio station in Sydney, and I'd almost forgotten about that, because while I was doing it, I had no view that this was going to culminate in a media career by the end of my playing days. And I actually, when I first retired, I pursued a career in sales and marketing, which I quite enjoyed, and only did all that time I spent at Channel 9, I only did the media stuff on the side. I just never expected it to become what it has become.
Okay, that's crazy. I mean, you look back on it now in hindsight and you're like, well, of course you would turn into media, but I guess at the time you weren't even thinking.
No. It's a high-risk career, and you've got to remember that, particularly these days, is professional rugby leagues spitting out more and more talented, articulate players
very true.
Who can take a position, have a view, and as I was discussing with you before we did this interview, and this isn't me being self-deprecating, but by comparison to a lot of the guys who end up in the media, I'm a second-tier player, you know. So when you look across the guys, my generation, who are now working for either Channel 9 or Fox Sports, you're talking about Brad Fittler, Darren Lockyer, Andrew Johns, you know, Mark Gasnier. They are all huge. Wally Lewis. I mean, come on. I mean, I just wasn't that good a player. I didn't have that big a profile. So I didn't expect to get the longevity out of it that I have. So I had to do it differently. I had to do it my own way. And one of the things I really tried to do to extend my career was learn how to host. You know, because there's not a lot of guys. You know, I think that the 3 guys that do the same job I do at the moment are Fatty Vorton, who's been doing it for 20 years or 20 plus years on the Footy Show, Peter Sterling, and Matty Johns, of course, who's fantastic. So I knew that I had to be more than just a talking head at the end of the panel. Because by the time I got myself onto the end of a panel, there was going to be any number of guys who had a bigger profile than me, you know, ready to replace me.
So take us all the way back to your study career. You debuted when you were 18?
Yes.
Were you, if I remember, were you one of the younger guys to debut at the time, or was there younger as in... What?
There's been younger...
Origin.
Been, younger club debutants. But I think I'm still... Well, I know, because I use it at every sportsman's lane. I'm the youngest debutant in State of Origin, so 18 years and 83 days. Do you know? Mate. Can you believe I know that exactly?
Oh, mate, I'd be known as... If that was me, I'd be telling everyone.
Mate, it was a dead set spin out. You know, so I'd played 3 first grade games. I just finished high school the year before. So the year before I was in grade 12, you know, and then what was it? All of 4 or 5 months later, I was running out for Queensland, and a little bit like how I got my start in the media. I've got to be honest that year in State of Origin, if you remember, was the Super League war. So any Super League aligned players didn't get selected, which meant no Brisbane Broncos for Queensland, which meant who the hell do we pick?
Yeah.
So
especially around that time.
I think they got to about player 15 or 16 and thought,
come on,
we're running out here. Well, honestly, I mean, who would select a young bloke from the Gold Coast who'd played 3 first-grade games? And they hadn't even been that crash hot, to be honest with you. But, mate, I made the team. Fatty Vorton was the coach. I roomed with a bloke by the name of Mark Coyne.
And you won the series, though.
We won the series 3-0.
That is great. Can you... So, I mean... You get the phone call. We walk us through the phone. Like, you get the phone call, or however you were informed of the decision that you were going to play. What are the feelings? What do you walk us through how it all happened?
No phone call.
Unfold.
Back in those days, they used to announce the team on free-to-air TV. What? And I remember sitting there. I just not long moved out of home. I was sitting there with my 2 roommates who played at the same club team as me, which was the Gold Coast Seagulls. Yep. And I said, let's watch this naming of the side. Because at that stage, we weren't sure whether or not they were going to pick Super League players. Yep. So by the time they got to Robbie O'Davis at fullback and Dale Shearer at 5'8", and Adrian Lamb, halfback, not Alan Langer, we pretty much knew no Super League players were going to be selected. So they got through the first 13 and they read out Ben Ikin, number 14, Gold Coast Seagulls. And me and my mates, I had no inkling it was coming. Me and my mates looked at each other and said, no way. The thing I remember most is that I reckon it was about half a second after my name got read out, our home phone rang. We had home phones back then. It was my old man. And you know the first thing he said to me, he says, is there another Ben Ikin on the Gold Coast? Oh. And he was serious. I said, no, Dad. It's me. I think I'm in. Anyway, so off to Brisbane. I went the next day into camp and met the coach, who didn't know me first time there.
Didn't know you.
No idea who I was. And we won the series 3-0.
Wow.
It was surreal.
That's
surreal.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And reading it on TV and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, were you whooping up to the boys like after a bit of banter?
I'm not much of a whooper.
Okay.
Yeah. But it knocked my socks off.
Yeah.
I mean, as I mentioned earlier, 4 months prior to my name being read out for Queensland, I was a high school student at Palm Beach, Currumbin.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you think it's these? It seems like you've been given these opportunities, and you've always been ready for them. Is that something in your life where you've kind of consciously made the decision of I'm always going to be at my best that I can be to be ready for whatever, or is it just?
I don't think I try and ready myself for opportunity.
Yeah.
But the one thing I think I've done well is when I get given an opportunity, is try and make the most of it.
Yep.
So I like being good at things.
Yep.
You're probably the same. I like to do things well.
Yep.
Which for me, again, it's something I probably didn't get exactly right as a footballer, is that whole philosophy of performance-loving preparation. It wasn't until I retired, and I retired pretty young at 26, that I really started to figure out why guys like Shane Webke, who didn't have a stack of a natural ability, but could play so good each and every week.
Yeah, every week. Yep.
What was driving that?
Yep.
And it was that they were so consistent and worked so hard in their preparation.
It's very true.
Yeah, and I think even now, doesn't matter what I do in life, whether it's, being a dad or being a husband or being a mate, I love my golf, even being a good golfer.
Yep.
I want to do whatever I can to be the best in that role.
Area. Yep. Yeah, it's so true. I mean, you as a young guy, I was similar. Like that wasn't even a part of my kind of mentality. My mentality was like, I'll train hard, and I'll go out and I'll play hard, and the rest takes care of itself. But you don't really realise it. Who I think Brent Tate said it to me once. I was struggling at the Warriors, and he just said, like, if you do everything perfect each week, as good as you can each week, you're going to have the best possibility of playing well each week. And
it has a compounding effect, and I reckon you're probably the same as me as a young bloke. The hard work never scared us.
Yep.
Like, we could easily commit to the hard work. So that's the training and doing all the tasks in the lead up to Friday night or Sunday across the training week. I think the area of my life that I've got better at as I've got older, that I wasn't so great at when I was younger, is making sacrifices.
Yes, very true.
Is that I wasn't prepared to give up things.
That's very
to achieve.
Yep.
And as I've gotten older, I've realised you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yep.
If you want to go from point A to point B and do the point B thing really well, then at some stage along that journey, you're going to have to give up some things, make some sacrifices.
Oh, mate, that resonates so strongly with me. There's a lot of occasions where, I mean, even with this show, like, you could with my show that I'm doing now, like I could take it easy, rest on the laurels, but there's things that like maybe you miss that gym session or whatever to edit, to talk, whatever it is. It's just and it's a constant. It's about because I'm still only 28, so I'm still battling through those those things that you're just talking about of willing to sacrifice things. And I think that a lot of players that are naturally really gifted are similar situations as well. Because they're so naturally gifted, they don't have to sacrifice anything to kind of get to that position. So throughout their career, when times get tough, like for example, a guy like Dave Taylor, like he is so good and so naturally gifted, but there were times when he wasn't playing as well because I feel like it came too easy to him because it was So it's very interesting that you say that. So yeah, you made your Origin debut at 3 games in. Did that rattle your kind of not your confidence, because obviously it would boost your confidence, but did it kind of put a spanner in the works of your development as a young first grader?
Absolutely. Yeah, I came back from 6 weeks away in Origin camp and take a couple of weeks on prior and after, and I went from playing State of Origin, so first grader, State of Origin player, and I reckon within 4 weeks I was on the bench for reserve grade at the Gold Coast Seagulls.
Wow.
Yeah. So it sort of fell apart.
Yep.
Because it had all come so quickly.
Yep.
And I didn't have the emotional maturity.
Yep.
Or the life experience to understand why it had come so quick. So I'd had a really good pre-season. I worked really hard at making reserve grade.
Yep. Wow.
And continued to work, and then played first grade and continued to work and made a State of Origin side. And then I did exactly the opposite of what you're doing with your radio stuff. I rested on my laurels.
Yep. Okay.
I thought I've arrived. I've done everything in the game. And so my diet went out the window, my work ethic with my training just went backwards, and I got what I deserved.
Yep.
Which was just a fall from grace.
Yep.
But I realised it, and I had to get out of Dodge. I was on the Gold Coast still. It was where I grew up. I had a lot of mates. There were tradies and surfing and
different
enjoying
lifestyles.
things that I couldn't. So I upped and left the Gold Coast Seagulls and went to the North Sydney Bears, which is a really professional club, and I had guys like Jason Taylor, who's the captain, Gary Larson, just a workhorse, Billy Moore, one of the hardest trainers you'll ever find.
Yep.
And I had to learn new habits.
Okay.
To get my career back on track, and thankfully I did.
And so it was a conscious decision then to get out of Gold Coast? It was like, I need to do it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it sort of helped my cause that the Gold Coast Seagulls, the club I was contracted to, they actually collapsed.
Okay,
and they were later reborn as the Gold Coast Chargers the next year, but there was a lot of players in limbo. And I was lucky because of my debut with the Queensland State of Origin team that year. I had a couple of options in Sydney, and I just realised I needed to go, and I picked the right club. The North Sydney Bears had the best people, the best facilities, and the best culture for me at that time.
Yep.
And it allowed me, being in that organisation and around those quality people, to kind of rebuild my footy career.
So you played North Sydney Bears 96 to 99. Was that, were they your kind of, not apprentice years that you kind of missed out on because you made Queensland so quickly, but were they your kind of, I guess, those years you do develop from new debutant into seasoned first grader, do you think? Or
I think it was just I became a seasoned first grader there, but I still hadn't figured it out. I still hadn't figured out that Sunday afternoon was all about what I did from Monday to Saturday.
Yep.
I'd train really hard and start playing some really good footy, and then I'd start celebrating my success.
Okay.
And take the foot off the gas.
Yep.
And so, I would have to say, even when I arrived back in Brisbane, so through my time at the North Sydney Bears and at the Broncos, the penny hadn't dropped on that one. So for me, my footy career was rocks and diamonds because it mirrored my attention to preparation.
Wow.
Yeah, so a bit of a roller coaster.
Yep.
And it's only now that I can look back, having had some experiences in corporate life, starting to get to that point on my journey where I'm reading about leadership and other great talents and people from different industries and different walks of life, that I can look back now and say, what, I wish I knew that then. It would have been so much better. But I've got a great life, and I know that the person I am today is the sum total of all those good and bad experiences I've had along the way.
Very, very true. You may have played, who knows, you could have played a little bit better footy, but then you may not have had this career after it. Kind of, you never know.
That's right.
It's crazy how it all kind of works out. So you go to Brisbane 2000. They win a premiership that year. Were you part of the first grade squad in that year?
I was, yes. I went back in and started the season, I should say, playing in the centres.
Yep.
And then through the course of the year, I ended up in the halves with Kevy Walters.
That team was ridiculous.
It was. The forward pack was ridiculous. I mean, I shouldn't say just the forward pack, but I think to myself, being a 5'8", so behind playing them in the halves, behind Shane Webke, Petro Sivanasiva, Brad Thorne, Kevin Campion, Harvey Howard, the English international, was coming off the bench, I think. Dane Carlaw and Brad Myers were just starting to come through. So too Ashley Harrison. And then you go to the back line. So Kevy Walters, I think, ended up winning 5 grand finals.
Wow.
And Darren Lockyer, Wendell Saylor, Tony Carroll, Lottie Kiri in his first year. I mean, that's just unfair, isn't it?
And you had guys like Chris Walker injured and blokes like that as well. Wow. Was Hancock as well there?
Yeah, Mick Hancock was coming off the bench at that stage. He couldn't get a start on the wing ahead of a bit bigger, wasn't he? Wendell and Lottie. Still the same size. Yeah. But Wayne used him in the back row just because he's a great club man and just a tremendous competitor.
Oh, mate.
At training and in games.
Oh, yeah, at training and in games.
Yeah, and still a very good friend of mine to this day, Michael Hancock. So he was one of the guys who made the transition for me from the North Sea Bears to the Broncos really, really easy.
Yeah, oh, mate, he put a lot of time into me when I was coming through the grade. He was one of those, I guess, mentor that taught, like, he'd take time out of his day, out of his own kind of willing, like he had no one telling him, oh, we need you to work with such and such, and come and kind of help me out in reserve grade. So yeah, I owe a lot of my good footy to Mick.
It's amazing when you consider what you see on TV. He's so angry.
Yes.
At the entire universe when you watch him play, that you hear this side of him, you know, which is so generous and giving of his time.
Oh, mate, it was, and I you know what, it was a similar situation. You know, he kind of taught me all these great things, and I took it for granted, and I started playing not as good footy because I wasn't, you know, giving back to, as in, you know, he might say, oh, we'll do training next week, give me a call, and I might not call him, you know, rest on my laurels and not kind of, you know, I'm already there and whatever. And then, you know, footy started to, slowly not play as well. And then, you know, he'd come back into the picture and say, you know, I'll give you help if you want to help. And so, yeah, he was instrumental in that really good year I had, 2007 and 8. So, yeah, you won 2000. 2001, you guys, you struggled 2001, didn't you? You struggled 99, won 2000, struggled 2001, or you went well right 2001?
No, we still made the finals. Yeah. But we weren't anywhere near as good. Yeah. There'd been a bit of change up in the roster. I think that was Wendell's last year. In fact, I spent most of 2001 and all of 2002 on the sideline with a knee injury. So I think it was 6 rounds in against the Warriors. I got into some open space and threw on one of those side steps. It's meant to leave everyone burned. And I tore every ligament and both my cartilages in my left knee. And it took them 3 operations and 2 years to put it back together.
Far out, 2 years?
2 years, yeah. So I tore my ACL. I ripped my posterior cruciate ligament off the bone. I tore my medial in half, my lateral in half, and I busted both cartilages. So the first time they
what a step.
Yeah, I know. First time they put it back together, it didn't really take. So midway through the rehab, my ACL started to fray again. My PCL started to tear off the bone again. So I had to do more major surgery. So I think it ended up about 2 years, the rehab.
And so 2003 then that you came back full force and everything was fine?
Full force,
ready to go.
How about quarter force?
Quarter force?
Yeah, mate, listen, I wasn't the same player.
Oh, really?
Yeah, nowhere near this. I didn't enjoy it. Okay. I had to spend most of the week on the rower and cross-training, couldn't run. Yep. I hadn't figured out that if I'm training less, I should eat less and drink less Forex. So, my weight got up from my preferred playing weight was around 92. I think I was playing 2003 at about 96.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And because I couldn't do the things physically, speed-wise, agility-wise that I used to be able to do, I just kind of stopped enjoying my footy.
Yeah, yep.
So I actually retired at the end of 2003, the first time.
And then come back, because you missed it, and then come back?
I did. I just come back and played State League for the Toowoomba Clydesdales for a year. So I went off to work. I got my first marketing gig. And I think I ended up still playing about 12 first grade games for the Broncos.
Oh, really?
That year, just because they fell short through Origin and
a
couple of other times. So I was working full time.
And playing.
And playing footy part-time. Yeah, so most of the sessions, if I ever got called up to the Broncos to play first grade, the sessions that were during work hours, I couldn't attend.
Oh, far out.
Yeah, so I really was the semi-professional footballer.
And was there ever a time when you're like, hang on a minute, maybe I should, give this another go? Never.
Mate, I don't know why, but I was so ready to leave footy behind and have a crack at the next chapter.
Wow.
And I don't know why.
Yeah, it's weird. That's so weird because, it's always there ready for you. It's not like that 5 years where you could have continued to play. It's not like, it's not like it's just going to disappear, these opportunities.
Yeah.
They're actually going to get bigger because you're going to play footy for longer.
Well, and so by the time I'd finished in 2003, I wasn't enjoying footy at all.
Yep.
And when I come back in 2004, I was loving my footy again.
Yep.
But I convinced myself I was loving it more because I didn't have to take it as serious. Because I was off working, and whether I won or lost, played good or bad on a Sunday afternoon, I had to get up, get in my car, and be at work by 9 o'clock Monday morning.
Stuff that.
And work with a whole group of people.
Sore as, just killing.
But I was with people that didn't care.
Yeah, okay. So do you think it was the pressure that you kind of struggled with in footy?
Absolutely, particularly in my last full professional year, 2003. I wasn't playing all that well, and I didn't deserve any sort of praise about how I was going. In fact, I deserved the opposite. But I did myself the disservice at some point through that season, jumping online. The internet had just started to come in vogue, and it was a place for people to voice their opinions and read what they thought about me and my career. And honestly, it was vile. The hate, and I just had not had that experience before.
Yep.
And it kind of, I went into my shell. I started to second guess myself, my career. Yep. And I know how to handle that stuff now. We all do. We're all much better for it. But the first time you ever have that experience where you get the masses having an opinion about who you are and what you do, and it's largely in the negative.
Yep.
In fact, it's hateful.
It
can really have an effect on you. And it did me that year. So I decided, hang on, maybe I don't want to live this life anymore because, as you're a young bloke coming through, it's just, I found it really easy to brush that stuff aside.
Yeah.
You didn't care. You were playing footy, you're having a good time, you're with your mates, you were training hard. How good's this? You're living the dream. Then all of a sudden, you start to become more and more self-aware and conscious of how other people see you. Somewhere through your mid-20s. Can happen later for some, earlier for others, but for me it was around my mid-20s. And when I realised that I had a whole stack of critics out there that weren't in the media, it really got to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. What's the best, not the best spray, but what's the worst thing you've ever read? We were talking to Chris Walker earlier, and he said he was getting death threats when he decided to go from Rabbitohs to Roosters.
Yeah, my most weird experience I had when I was at the Broncos, and it wasn't online. It was actually face to face. So I remember we used to go back to the auditorium after a game and have the drink with the fans. And it was in 2000. I'd come back, and I think I'd put together a couple of ordinary games, which I had a habit of doing across my career. But I'd gone up to the bar at the auditorium after this game where I hadn't played great, hadn't played ordinary though, somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
And there was this old bloke up at the bar, and he sidled up to me and said, "Oh, you're Ben Ikin, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, I am. G'day, mate. How you going?" And he said, "Mate, I've just got to tell you."
I've got to tell you.
Yeah. I don't rate you as a player. I said, "Right." This is 2000, and I said, "Okay." He said, "Yeah, mate, when Wayne Bennett signed you from the North Sydney Bears, I pretty much wrote off our season." And I got my 4X gold. I'm ready to go and jump off the Story Bridge. I said, and as you're taught, you nod and smile and walk away. So I did, and I went and sat back down, and I thought, that's it, my career's over. That old bloke at the bar who's about 65, who's probably never played a game in his life, but that doesn't matter. He doesn't rate me as a player.
And he's got to tell you.
I started to doubt myself.
Oh, really?
So I'm drinking my beer, I go up and have a couple more, and I'm sitting there wallowing in self-pity. And I go back again for another beer, and this young bloke's at the bar, and he sidles up to me. He says, "You're Ben Ikin, aren't you?" And I went, "Oh, serious? Here we go." "Yes, mate, I'm Ben Ikin." He said, "I just got to tell you, you're my favourite player. And when Wayne Bennett signed you for the Brisbane Broncos, mate, I thought we were a red-hot chance to win the grand final."
What?
So me, chest out, I'm feeling on top of the world.
Yeah.
And shook his hand and said, "Mate, you've made my day." I went and sat down, But then it occurred to me, and I don't think it was that night from memory, but in the following days, that I'd let a couple of complete strangers who really have no influence on how I play, what I do, nor do they know how hard I work, determine how I was going to feel about myself.
Moneyball.com.au is Australia's #1 fantasy destination for a reason. I absolutely love it. It is so easy to use and super fun. You pick your starting 9 with a $60,000 salary cap and you're good to go. To genuinely support the locker room, sign up for free today at moneyball.com.au.
You know, and that's in essence what the online platform has become, you know, for all the people who want to post comments on now on Twitter and Instagram, wherever you go. You know, and if you're going to dive in there, you got to have thick skin.
Oh, mate, 100%. And it's just... It's crazy how, as you just said, you were letting these random people, and as any young man would, dictate how you would feel about yourself, even though you've just gone out and...
And I'm not that bloke, right? I'm not the bloke that can sit there and cop criticism and be okay with it.
Yeah, okay.
It has an effect on me, so I'm not thick-skinned that way.
Yeah.
So I'm on the old Phil Jauncey scale, I'm a thinker-feeler.
So if
you're going to have a shot at me, part of me is going to dwell on that and think, well, he might be right.
100%.
And I'll feel ordinary about myself. So for me, as I've moved from football into media, knowing how vicious the online world can be, I don't go there. I choose to live in ignorant bliss.
Really?
So I'm not on Twitter, and I'm not on Instagram. And not because I kind of don't want to be, because I'd love to engage with the fans that want to have a fun, intelligent conversation about footy, but I just know it's also a forum for a lot of people who just want to spew up some hate.
Oh, mate, 100%. 100%.
And I'd love to be the bloke, like Gordy Tallis, that could just brush all that aside. Or, you know, maybe fire back, well, let's fight. Let's meet somewhere. We'll sort it out. But that's not me, you know?
Yeah. I totally agree. It's such a hard... It's a double-edged sword, because I try to make a point of communicating with everyone that asks a question. And, you know, I mean, 100... people that love the show are more valuable than 10,000 people that peripherally enjoy it, kind of thing. So I try to, you know, engage with. But I mean, there are times when I'm just like, I mean, one bloke left a message on my wall. He said, "You're literally the worst interview I've ever heard in my entire life."
Really?
And I was like, "The worst in your entire life?" I'm far out. Like, even if I was so bad that it was, I can't be that bad. But it's just funny how like these random people, they probably like don't even. It's this small their day. It costs them nothing.
I know.
They never think about it again after they say it. They're just like, and then just get it out. They walk off, and we're sitting there going, "Fuck, maybe I am pretty bad at this." So you retired at 26. Is there any kind of regret there? Like, is there, you know,
none?
Or
funny, hey, I've got no regret that I didn't play on.
Wow.
I've had such a good time since I retired. You know, I've been married. I've got 4 kids. I've had some great jobs. You know, I worked in big corporate in the construction industry for, you know, the best part of 8 years. I had a couple of years in there where I went and took up a senior commercial role with the Gold Coast Titans, so I got to work in sports administration. I've sat on the Cowboys board. I've been involved with some great charities. Sat on the national board for the Men of League.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so, and then you roll in the media stuff and what I'm doing now, and I think to myself, how selfish would it be if I look back on what I've had, the opportunity I've been given since I've retired, and regret retiring.
Yeah, very, very true. I mean, and the breadth of experience like that you've had on all different kind of areas. I mean, it would be hard to, if you were just a normal bloke that maybe didn't have the connections that you did get when you were playing footy, it'd be hard to get all of those different kind of jobs that you were just saying. I mean, that's a real wide, you know, construction, sports administration, on the board, media. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's a good mix. And, you know, the best part for me was there's been the 2 parts I enjoy most about my life after footy is the things I've learned and the people I've met. You know, and jumping from across a couple of different industries, you know, I'm sure it's been like a university degree on steroids almost. All these wonderful people in senior roles that kind of enjoy what I've got to offer in terms of my background. You know, swapping and trading stories about things that, you know, I knew nothing about. You know, the world of finance, the world of big construction, you know, corporate governance. You know, and if you leave yourself open to those sorts of opportunities and open to those sorts of people, it's amazing what you can pick up along the way.
Oh, mate, 100%. Did you find that, were you shocked by how little footy matters when you left it. I mean, that's what I had a kind of. Don't get me wrong, it's a great game. Absolutely love it, but it's shocking. It was shocking to me. I lived and breathed it. It meant everything. If we lost at the end of the week, it was such a terrible thing. Then I left footy, and I was like, and you look at the world, and you're like, this is so small compared to what in my head it was so much bigger.
Yeah.
Was there a similar shock for yourself when you left footy, or not really?
Not really, because I never really thought on that topic all that much.
Yep.
You know, I report on the game now and realise how huge a part of some people's life rugby league is.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm conscious of that, and I'm respectful of that.
Yeah.
But because even while I was playing, I had other interests, and was always keen and eager to meet people from outside the game, to learn about things from outside rugby league.
Yep.
That I think subconsciously I always knew that this was just a game.
Yeah, okay.
Something I wanted to be good at.
Yeah, yeah.
And which is kind of a paradox, considering that when someone came into my world, my little rugby league world, from the outside, and had a crack at me or criticised me or made me feel small.
Yep.
How big an impact it had on me.
Yep.
But I guess I didn't fully grasp, even though while I was enjoying people and experiences outside of rugby league, until I retired, I guess the things that are out there in the big wide world that are just as enjoyable.
Yep.
But it's never been a really conscious. It was never really a conscious realisation for me.
Okay.
Just how small rugby league is, because even today, after I've retired, I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
I watch nearly every game every week.
I can't not watch it.
I get up and I want to read every rugby league story.
Yep.
I spew criticism at the Courier Mail or the Daily Telegraph if there's not enough rugby league in the paper. Me and my mates go to coffee a couple of times a week, every week, and all we want to talk about
is footy,
is rugby league. So we kind of love rugby league, and while I acknowledge that I've got kids and a wife and there's a whole heap happening out there, because I'm obsessed by the game, I'm a bit of a train spotter. It's kind of like my hobby and my passion.
Yep.
So I want it to be my world.
Yeah,
because I love it so much.
100%. It's crazy how it can be so big to someone and so small to someone else. I think that that's something that a lot of players struggle with when they retire, is like identifying who they are as a person without footy. So I know that I personally struggle with it. I know, I could name 10 blokes I know that retire that they kind of float in between jobs, and they don't really know what their purpose is outside of sport. So it's such a, you're so energised in your footy career. I mean, you've got coaches lined up, ready just to help you become better. Yep.
You've got a group of mates who you work day in, day out with to achieve a common goal.
Yeah.
It's a high pressure, high expectation environment. So as a group, what you do is you learn to block out the outside. You're close.
Yeah.
You've got a bit of profile, so there's some things that you enjoy off the back of that profile. So it's a career like no other. And I don't care what you do after your 10, 12 or 5 or 3 years of playing professional sport in this country, because we're so sports mad. Whatever that career is after you've finished, it will not be able to meet the excitement levels of what you lived as a professional athlete.
So true.
And that's where I think guys struggle. So when the game, they get told you can't play anymore, you're too old, it's almost like you rip away their sense of purpose, their sense of self.
Definitely.
'Cause
100%.
no job is going to be able to fill that void post-football.
They reckon that a lot of soldiers and army people that are in the army that are have gone touring together have similar senses of lost. Obviously there is a lot higher consequences, and it's more intense. But they reckon it's a similar situation, because a lot of therapists say that they come back and a part of the PTSD is feeling no purpose. They're not contributing towards anything. It's similar to, I guess, footy. Each week you've got a kind of goal set, and you've got to meet that targets and all those. So it's a strange situation, because they're retired and there's only so much money in the game to put into certain places, but it's an important place where the boys are no longer part of the game, and yet they're not really how do you help them without being too coddling, without spending too much money? It's a tough gig.
There's no perfect answer, I don't think.
Yeah, no, because everyone's different as well,
Yes.
So for example, yourself, you went into media and you end up in a job that you love, and then there might be 10 blokes that go into a job they hate, kind of thing.
Yep.
Winning we'll go back a bit again. The premiership, playing for Australia. What was that like? I mean, it was quite a while after your Origin debut.
Yes.
Was that another thing that you had an opportunity that kind of popped up, or did you work your way towards that?
No, I didn't. I mean, I think my memory of being selected for Australia wasn't so much the same excitement levels of being selected for Queensland, because State of Origin is so big in Queensland.
Yep.
Even though I grew up with a staple diet of kangaroo tours. I mean, I just used to watch that 1990 and 94 kangaroo tour over and over.
Oh, really?
Over again. I used to go and rent the tape from the local library of the 82 and the 86. I think it's the Unbeatables and the Invincibles, the kangaroo tour. So I did have dreams of one day representing my country. But having had, that first grade experience and being selected to play for Queensland, I was pretty satisfied, so to speak.
Okay, I know.
I was desperate after I got selected for Queensland to play the first time to play again.
Yep.
I just thought, the Australian thing will happen when it happens.
Yep.
Because I never really ever saw myself as the elite of the elite, and I thought those were the guys that represented their country. So when I got selected on the bench for Australia in 1998, the thing I remember most is saying to myself, I'm one of the best 17 players in this country, even though there'd been a stack of blokes pulled out injured. At that particular time, I was one of the best 17 rugby league players in Australia.
That's crazy.
And I digested that, and I was proud of that, and I moved on pretty quickly. But I just remember that being the overwhelming thought.
To think the percentages of you actually getting to that position and then being in such a small pool of the elite of the elite, it's crazy.
And then, after that, I barely got on the field, to be honest with you. So I played off the bench. I was the utility back. And the most profound thing I did across that 2 weeks together in the Australian team was after the second game. So in 1998, there'd been a test, the Anzac Test, early in the season, which Australia had lost. That was Darren Lockyer's test debut where he dropped all those balls. He had a shocker.
Lockyer and shocker doesn't even go in the same sentence.
He was horrendous. It was probably the worst game he's ever played. Anyway, crazy. He got selected in that side again, and Darren and I are the same age. We grew up playing against each other. Yep. We were the same position. Kind of sick jokers at the playing. But anyway...
We moved into six.
We went through the 2 weeks. We won those two games, and Jason Smith was given man of the match or man of the series after the second game, and he got this beautiful ornate glass man of the match award, right?
Yep.
And so we're in the after-match function. We're in New Zealand. I think we played at Eden Park. And I said, Smithy, that's beautiful. Can I have a look? Anyway, he gave it to me. I got called. I thought he still had it. He thought I had it.
Oh, no.
Yep. And it dropped on the ground and smashed into 1,000 pieces. This most beautiful trophy. And that was pretty much the highlight.
Oh, my God.
That was the biggest role I played in that 2 weeks, smashing Jason Smith's man of the match award.
Did he get replaced or anything or not?
I don't know. I was so embarrassed.
That's something you could show his kids, his grandkids, his
Let's just pretend it got replaced.
Oh, man, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. So you're married to Wayne Bennett's daughter.
Coach's daughter, yes.
The coach's daughter. What's, in my opinion, the greatest coach to ever coach the game and one of the most, influential men in Australia ever,
yes.
in my opinion.
Yep.
I think that most people that have played under him would have a similar opinion. What's, as a man, what do you, like, if you could sum Wayne Bennett as a man, knowing him as well as you do know him, what would be the kind of sentence that you would kind of attribute to him?
So, look, he's got a great moral code.
Yep.
He knows what he stands for. They're very simple values. It's almost, that kind of real farmer's simplicity, because he's off the land.
Yep.
He's got a very simplistic way to approach complex problems, which people enjoy. He can cut through all the bullshit and get to the nub of an issue and find a solution that is easy to execute.
Yep.
You know, and that's what's really worked for him in footy. But at the end of the day, he's a great human being.
Yeah.
You know, so I'll say it again. He's got a great moral code and he's got great character strength.
Yep.
And as a coach, what I think he's brilliant at doing is standing up for his players. So he's got great empathy, right?
Yeah.
So he genuinely cares for his players.
Yep.
And because they feel that, because he shows them that, because for most people he's got this really gruff exterior.
Yeah.
But those that have played for him know he's got this really generous heart, really caring nature, and he makes sure that he lives that through his players. So having that experience as a player and as a group of players in his team, by the time you get out there on Friday night or Sunday afternoon, you just want to die for him, don't you?
100%.
You know, and that's the greatness of the man. As a coach, I reckon he's got this philosophy on what wins football games. Mm-hmm. It's not complicated. It's easy to buy into. It's easy to understand. It's easy to execute. So wherever he goes, doesn't matter if it's the Broncos, the Dragons, it's Queensland, it's the Australian team, and now the Pommies.
The Poms, the bloody Poms.
Yeah, the New Zealanders. He had the New Zealanders with Kearney. He can package that up, take it with him, and drop it on a footy team, and they'll pick it up pretty easily. You know, and the other thing I like about Wayne as a footy coach is he creates a space for the players that can do things that you can't coach.
Yeah.
You know, so while he's got some absolute rules in terms of how he wants his teams to play, he's not going to be in your face and trying to control someone like Alan Langer or Wendell Saylor or Darren Lockyer. He's going to let those guys do what they were born to do. You know, because they were given a gift, and he realises that while he's got this game plan and this training technique that he knows is proven, at the end of the day, players win competitions, and you need a few brilliant runs, you know, to win a lot of them.
Very, very true. What's the what would be the best bit of advice he's ever given you?
It would be as a father. So,
as a both.
Yeah, so he's given the best advice he's given to me was about fatherhood.
Oh, okay. As a I get you.
And he said to me, the best thing a father can do for his kids is love their mother.
It's so true. Because then,
put their mum up on a pedestal. You know, show your kids that you love and respect her every day, and it sends a wonderful message to your boys, your sons, and to your daughters.
And it kind of, I guess, you know, if you're taking care of, as in loving her as much as you can, she's gonna take care of all the other things. You know, everything else is just gonna fall in a positive light.
Mum feels, you know, your wife feels good about herself. As a wife, but also as a mother, the kids get to see that, and ultimately it breeds a happy home. You know, and that's really important to me. You know, that our kids grow up in a happy environment where they feel safe and loved. So especially it's really good advice.
With so much stuff going on, like young kids these days are just so there's just so many things that can just draw their attention away. To just have a kid, I don't know. The word you used then was safe. It is very like a word that kind of suits the situation, because there's just so many things that can take a kid's mind away to whatever direction.
Absolutely. So no matter what's going on in their life, and it can get pretty complicated these days, right? Is they know in the back of their mind, whether it's conscious or subconscious, they've always got a place to come back to. Where things can make sense. You know, because I see a lot of kids these days who don't have that environment to go back to, and life kind of can spiral out of control a bit.
Very true.
And they don't even know what's happening to them.
Very true. So with yourself, what has been the hardest time in your career or your life where you've needed to really pick yourself back up and continue forward? What's been the tough times for yourself?
I haven't had any.
Really?
Yeah, I am blessed.
Wow.
You know, I mean, people sometimes look at me and ask me about that couple of years that I had injured with my knee, which was probably about as hard as it got for me, to be honest.
Really?
And I think they want me to tell some sort of hard luck story, tale of redemption and fighting back. And when I did my knee the first time, even though the injury was pretty bad, I don't know why, but I just look forward to the rehab and doing that properly.
Okay. And
when I didn't get the rehab right the first time, because I started to celebrate something along the way, headed back out to the discos, which I'm sure contributed, and I had to go in for the second major surgery. I look forward to getting the rehab right the second time.
Wow.
And I didn't really dwell on what I'd done poorly the last time. And I think maybe that's something that's innate in me.
Okay.
I just kind of
keep moving forward. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And as I said to you earlier on in the interview, I've made some huge mistakes.
Yep.
In my life, made some really poor decisions. I'm sure I've treated some people in ways that I'm not proud of.
Yep.
At times through my life, but now I look back and I think, if I hadn't made that mistake, or treated that person that way, and they didn't tell me how they felt, and, I felt embarrassed and small about what I did and how I treated them, or that decision I'd made there, then I don't reckon I would have got all these little life lessons.
Yeah, very
along
true.
the way. And I just reckon life's too short to have major regrets.
Yep.
I'm not saying that there's not stuff that I wish I had have done different, but I'm not going to dwell on it.
Okay. Yep. Very, very, very true. It's crazy how much time we waste on things that we can't have no control over and can't change. I mean, we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. Thinking about things that have happened in the past that there's really the energy spent on it is so pointless and so.
Agreed.
Oh mate, but you still do it, and you're just like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing?
And so it's just a habit for a lot of people, and it's something hard to break free of. So up until which point you get really mechanical about it almost, and say, okay, I can't get this sorted out of my mind, and the only way I'm probably going to is to physically write down the lesson that I learnt from doing that wrong.
Yep.
And start to do that.
Yes.
If you're a person that just gets continually dragged back into the past, and it's affecting what you're doing today, how you feel about yourself, then you've got to make the change, don't you?
Oh, 100%. There's a lot of you clearly read quite a lot. There's a lot of great books out there actually that have really delved into the science, but also there's a lot of information out there nowadays compared to maybe 20 years ago about ways to kind of improve your mental health, which is a really good thing. Really good thing for young kids these days. I've got some fan questions for you here, mate.
Yes.
Haven't read them yet, so I don't know what they're going to say.
Okay.
Who, in your opinion, is the greatest Brisbane Bronco of all time, and why is it Scott Minto?
I'm assuming that's from someone in the Minto family, probably Scott.
S Minto.
Yeah. So definitely wasn't Scott Minto. I can say that. Although I will say this about Scotty is there was no one who would drive Wayne Bennett more insane than Scott Minto, right? Because normally when Wayne gives someone a blast, they're depressed and down. They realise they've done the wrong thing. I remember Wayne used to come over and blast Scotty Minto at training for doing something wrong, and he'd just giggle at him. Good on you, Wayne, and walk off, and it would drive Wayne insane. But to answer Scotty's question, the greatest Bronco, I think, and look, Darren Lockyer is a favourite of mine, so we're good mates. I still would have to go with Alfie Langer.
Really, Alfie?
Yeah.
I got to go with Lockie.
Yeah, right.
I've got to go with him.
Yeah,
just so consistent.
Yeah, and I think Alfie was the same.
Yeah.
I reckon after, so Wally Lewis got moved on, so he was the star in Queensland. Someone had to step up and fill the void for the Broncos. Gino was made captain originally, and then Alfie took over. And I think without Alf's leadership or his out-and-out football genius, the Broncos don't have that success through the 90s. Okay. And the club that they are today is built off what Brisbane did through the 90s.
That's very true.
Which everyone after Alfie Langer has benefited from.
That's very, very true.
Which Darren Lockyer was part of. He made his debut in 1995. So he was right there beside Alf in the late 90s when they won that comp in 97 and 98.
Is there any stories of Alfie? I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of stories of Alfie, but what's something that is there any stories you can recall? Maybe his footy brilliance, or something that the fans that Alfie's a character, so a funny story that you can remember of Alfie?
Yeah, I can. I remember in the 1998 Origin Series, so this was my first Origin Series where Super League players had been involved. So it was split in 95.
Yep.
We won that year. It came back together in 96. I didn't get selected. They split again in 97, and I did get selected. So 98 was my first chance to play with Gordon Tallis, Alfie Langer, Kevy Walters, Wendell Saylor, Darren Lockyer, Peter Ryan, all those great Broncos players.
Yep.
And what struck me in that 1998 camp in the lead up to Game 1 was how much fun the Broncos players had at training.
Oh, really?
In the lead up to what was the biggest game, and I'd come from the North Sydney Bears, where it was a really serious club,
Okay, yeah.
Not better, not worse, just different. But honestly, Elf and Kev took the piss every second of the day. It was quite incredible, and so I'd seen a new sort of way of doing things. You can still have stacks of fun, even in the preparation and the lead up to games. But what happened is we won the first game, barely. We lost the second game. And all I'd really seen of Elf up until that point was the Joker. We get through to the third game, and it's the decider in Sydney. And on the night before the game, Elfie, just being the prankster, could barely take him serious at the best of times, knew how good a player he was, but he stepped up in front of the team on the night before the game after dinner, and he gave a speech. And he was like I'd never seen him before.
What, serious?
Yes. And
serious.
Because of how I'd come to know him.
Yeah.
When the switch went on, and he said how important this game was, and what we needed to do, and how we needed to commit to each other, and what the coach had given to us that week, you can imagine, and it didn't go for long.
The impact.
But the impact that had was just phenomenal.
Wow.
Everyone, you could have heard a pin drop in that room.
Yep.
And this is normally the bloke that they just laugh at all week.
Little Alfie.
Was sitting there in stunned silence.
Wow.
So,
and legends of the game.
If he can do that, if he's prepared to stand up and be that serious about this game tomorrow, then it must be serious. That's my most sort of profound memory of Alfie. Yeah.
Wow. And did you win the next day?
We did.
Why did you recall NRL 360 live at ANZ Stadium before Broncos Cowboys Grand Final? And then watch the game from the hotel room. I don't know if that's even true.
What's that?
They said, why did you record NRL 360 live at ANZ Stadium before the Broncos Cowboy Grand Final and then watch the game from the hotel room?
No, we didn't.
Some people would leave questions like that.
No. We recorded it live at before State of Origin 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if he wants to ask me that.
Well, why'd you record it live at State of Origin 2?
Yeah, so I've got to be honest with you. I much prefer watching football at home on the TV than I do live. I think it's just by virtue of the fact that being a commentator post-retirement is I've taken in that much live footy, sometimes 3 games a weekend, that the viewing experience, and I'm pleased to say I'm part of that now with Fox Sports and with Channel 9, is so good.
It is very good.
To be able to eat my wife's homemade pizza on a Friday night, as opposed to walking 2 blocks from my house to watch the Broncos live, is more appealing to me. So when we recorded NRL 360 before the Origin games at Suncorp Stadium and at ANZ Stadium, I walk off set, I jump in a cab, and I'm home in the hotel to watch it.
Lying on the couch, just with a beer or something,
Put the pyjamas on, order up some pizza, and away we go.
It's and also, I mean, you would already be there, but for the typical fan, the viewing experience from Fox Sports and Channel 9 is so good that you've got to make it's just expensive to go to games. It's really, the food's expensive. If you take your family, it's going to cost you $200. Whereas you've got a comparable thing with Fox Sports and Channel 9. It's such good viewing that you've got to have a pretty cheap product to kind of beat that.
You do, and it's hard to get the balance right.
Yeah.
I really feel for the big Tier 1 sporting codes, because I know crowds dropped on average in the AFL, they dropped in the NRL. It's really hard to get people live to the venue. You've got to have a passion either for your team or live sport these days because of the costs to go along. And truth be told, all the AFL teams and the NRL teams, even the Big Bash and all their success, they're trying to bring those costs down as much as they can, because they realise now, because of the television product being so good, it's hard to get people out of their lounge chairs. But it's for the governing bodies of each of the codes, it's you've got to be very careful, because we've just had $2 billion broadcast rights deal struck.
Very
so
true.
We've got broadcasters who've paid $2 billion that want people to stay at home on their lounge.
Yeah, very, very true. It's
not to go to the game, and then this goes full circle again. That if you talk to the broadcasters, they actually want to be broadcasting games where there are big crowds in the background.
Very true.
I don't know what the answer is, but it's something that every single sporting code in the country is very conscious of. The balance between getting people live at the game and making sure that the broadcasters are getting numbers so they can keep asking for more money every time the broadcast rights comes up.
Could you, I mean, like, it's such a hard thing. Like, could you maybe factor in the broadcasting rights to take the brunt of the losses you make? Like, let's say you make everything extremely cheap at the stadium, so that it does look like, on broadcast, it does look like a full stadium, and then you factor in the costs of the broadcasting deal. You know what I mean? Like, they take the lot.
Absolutely.
They take, maybe that's probably your best kind of.
Absolutely. I've got no doubt they're having those sorts of conversations at AFL House, at NRL headquarters. I mean, that's I mean, you don't want to be showing games live around the world because, let's be honest, for rugby league in particular, this is something that we want to grow globally. The NRL is the best rugby league product in the world. So when it gets beamed out to every country that's taking it, you don't want to see 2,000 people in the background.
Oh, they've got it. They've got it. Like ANZ, I think, is it Telstra now? What's it called now?
No, it's ANZ Stadium.
ANZ. I mean, they can't. I wouldn't be hosting any games there if I was. I mean, I know there must be some kind of deal, and there's a lot more going on than I know. I'm ignorant of the facts, but let's say I wasn't ignorant of the facts, and they were just playing games there to play games there. That is the last. It's too big.
It is hard, but you see, the thing is, you strike up a deal as a Sydney club to go there because 2 or 3 times a year you're going to get 50,000.
Yeah, okay.
You know, and by signing on for 12 games, it gives you some sort of economies of scale. So your cost per game comes down.
Yeah, okay.
As opposed to just signing on to play those 3 games there. And like, take someone for the Bulldogs who got massive crowds at Belmore in the return to Belmore round. I think it was against the Melbourne Storm on a Monday night.
Yep.
You would love to see that every week, but the things you don't see is that there's bugger all corporate facilities. You know, people are lining up, 100, 200 metres to use portaloos.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know?
So there's so many factors. There's so many factors going in.
It's a complex issue, the stadia stuff, and it is something that the NRL need to get right, because at the moment we've got these teams that sit in suburban Sydney that would ideally probably love to be playing their home games, like Manly on the North Shore, the Bulldogs at Belmore, and the Tigers at Leichhardt. But the government's just not prepared to throw money at those stadiums because the cost to keep them going and maintain them is not feasible.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That sucks. And just before you go, craziest, when you think of footy in your career, what's 2 questions. Craziest memory of footy, or not even craziest, just fondest, or something that you, when I say footy career, what do you think of?
Footy career, I think of as mates. Yeah, I've got some friends that I picked up along the way throughout 10 years of first grade rugby league that will stay with me for life.
Yep.
Not many of them. I'm not a huge collector of friends. I've only got a small gang, so to speak.
Yep.
But they're important to me, and most of them have come from my life in football. And the other part are the memories on and off the field. I think of some great moments, winning the 95 Origin series when nobody expected us to win one game. We win 3-0. That grand final with the Brisbane Broncos, the first time I got to wear the Greenland goals. But there's some other times, like trips away.
Yeah.
Where I used to love to organise a trip away.
Oh, you were the organiser?
Oh, I loved it. Raising the money, rallying the troops, and picking the destination and copping the grief off whoever.
But you've always been a hard work. Like, it seems like you not enjoy hard work, but you're always ready to do a bit of work.
I like to be kept busy.
Okay.
I get bored really easy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a
which is a strength and a weakness.
Yes.
So I can't sit still. Can't ask my wife how long that can become.
If there's one thing you could change about the game, what would it be?
I reckon that everything we see at the elite level is born out of what happens at grassroots, right? And there's a whole stack of research coming in now that the 30% churn we get every year in junior rugby league. So of the 100% participants, 30% are quitting rugby league at the end of the year, and they get replaced. So we're picking up a new 30%. Which is good and bad. But of the 30% that do drop out, the biggest reason they give is a poor experience with the coach. We've got a lot of junior coaches now coming into the game who are really ambitious for their own careers, and that's not such a bad thing. I applaud the fact that they're giving up their time, they're volunteering to help out at that level. But what they need to know, and I think there needs to be more education around this from the NRL down, is that kids, it's not so much about the learning. They just want a positive, enjoyable experience.
Yep.
And that's about getting a go. That's about having fun with their mates. It's about not having someone over their shoulder screaming at them. And the more coaches that are prepared to give up their time and approach it that way, as opposed to being ambitious to win each and every week, I think the better off the game will be. So the more education we can give to young coaches, again, I know they don't all get it right, but I cannot do anything but applaud the fact they've given up their time to help out. But the more they can understand, it's less about the wins and the losses at that level. It's more about just making sure that the kids have fun. The better off the game will be.
That's very, very true. I never really thought about that. It's such a kind of trickle effect from all the way, roots footy. I mean, there might be 100 kids that could have played NRL that don't play NRL, or could play reserve grade that bolsters reserve grade to make it better, and then first grade becomes better. So,
and you cannot fault a young man who's coaching the under 15s for wanting to coach the 18s and perhaps maybe one day end up coaching in the NRL. But you've got to learn how to manage that ambition, particularly at the grassroots level. Yeah. And the younger they get, the more the experience has to be about having a good time, having fun, not winning or losing.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also, you can teach young kids how to lose well. It's not put the weight of the world on the loss, if you know what I mean. So I agree with you 100%. It's a great answer.
Thanks, Dennis.
Mate, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's been awesome. It's been I've been very I guess there's a few things that have resonated very strongly with myself. So thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. Can I say this? You've got me a bit worried, because I think at some point in the future the locker room might end up replacing NRL 360.
No way, sir. Don't you dare say that. You're too good. You're too good. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Denon.
Moneyball.com.au is Australia's #1 fantasy destination for a reason. I absolutely love it. It is so easy to use and super fun. You pick your starting 9 with a $60,000 salary cap and you're good to go. To genuinely support the locker room, sign up for free today at moneyball.com.au.